So previously, napag-aralan natin yung mga theorems on limits. And those theorems can be applied when x approaches c or a number. Actually, those limits can also be applied when we replace x approaches c to x approaches positive infinity or x approaches negative infinity. So we let k, L sub 1, L sub 2 be an element of the set of real numbers and n be an element of the set of natural numbers. So suppose that the limit of f of x as x approaches positive or negative infinity is equal to L sub 1 and the limit of g of x as x approaches positive or negative infinity is equal to L sub 2, then yung limit ng constant natin as x approaches positive or negative infinity is actually equal to the constant itself. Theorem 2 states that the limit of the product of a constant and a function as x approaches positive and negative infinity is actually pwede nating ilabas yung constant k times the limit of f of x as x approaches positive or negative infinity. So parang same lang doon sa limit theorems natin noon. Also, yung limit ng sum or difference ng functions, Theorem 3 can also be applied kapag marami siyang function, basta sum and difference. Okay? So the limit of the sum and difference of two functions as x approaches positive and negative infinity is actually equal to the sum or difference of the individual limits as x approaches positive and negative infinity. Ganon din sa Theorem 4, the limit of a product of two functions as x approaches positive or negative infinity is actually equal to the product of the limits of the individual functions as x approaches positive or negative infinity. So ito, pwede din siya kahit na marami siyang product ng functions. Pwede pa rin yung theorem number 4. Theorem 5 states that the limit of a quotient, provided that the limit of the denominator is not equal to 0, is equal to the quotient of the limits. So dito, yung limit ng f of x over g of x as x approaches positive or negative infinity, equal lang siya kapag dinivide mo yung limit ni f of x sa limit ni g of x. Basta yung nasa denominator not equal to 0. Theorem 6 states that the limit of a function raised to a natural number as x approaches positive or negative infinity is equal to, pwede mo actually ilabas yung raise niya. Okay? So we have the limit of f of x as x approaches positive or negative infinity raised to n. Note here that this theorem is only true kapag si n natin is an element of natural numbers. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. Theorem number 7 states that the limit of the nth root of f of x as x approaches positive and negative infinity is equal to, pwede mong ilabas yung nth root. So we have nth root of the limit of the function as x approaches positive or negative infinity. However, this is only true if yung limit natin sa loob is positive kapag even yung n natin. Pero kapag add si n natin, hindi na kailangang positive to. Pwedeng positive siya, pwedeng negative. So yun lang. Positive dapat yung nasa loob kapag yung n natin is even. Theorem 8 states that the limit of x as x approaches positive infinity is actually equal to positive infinity. And the limit of x as x approaches negative infinity is equal to negative infinity. So parang sinasubstitute lang natin yung value ni positive or negative infinity. This is very important kapag nag-evaluate na tayo ng limits of functions. So another important limit is the limit of 1 over x raised to n as x approaches positive or negative infinity. Useful siya kapag nag-evaluate na tayo ng limits ng mga indeterminate forms. Okay? So sinasabi dito na yung limit daw ng 1 over x raised to n, kahit anumang n yan, okay, as x approaches positive or negative infinity is just equal to 0. So sinasabi nito that the limit of 1 over x as x approaches positive or negative infinity is 0 kahit na yung limit ng 1 over x raised to 5 as x approaches positive or negative infinity is also 0. Ito pa, isa pang useful na theorem. Kapag yung limit ng f of x natin as x approaches positive or negative infinity ay constant, at yung limit ng g of x natin as x approaches positive or negative infinity is equal to positive or negative infinity, then yung limit ng kanilang quotient as x approaches positive or negative infinity is equal to 0. Okay, let's take a look at these examples. The limit of 5 as x approaches positive infinity. So by theorem 2, this is just equal to 5. Kasi limit ng constant is equal to the constant itself. For number 2, the limit of x squared as x approaches negative infinity is equal to, so pwede nating ilabas yung squared. So we have the limit of x as x approaches negative infinity squared. Pero ano ba yung limit na to? Diba this is just equal to negative infinity? And if we square that, that is actually equal to positive infinity. For number 3, okay, so ganun din, ilalabas lang natin yung cube. So we have the limit of x as x approaches positive infinity cube. Pero ano nga ba ito? This is positive infinity. And kapag kinube natin yan, that is just equal to positive infinity. And lastly, the limit of x cubed as x approaches negative infinity. Again, we have the limit of x as x approaches negative infinity cubed. Ano nga ba ang value nito? This is just equal to negative infinity cubed, or that is equal to negative infinity.